Colby's always complaining how he can't see anything. Colby, I got you some glasses now you can see.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they like fit perfect.
That's perfect. Let me see.
Come on.
That's looking pretty sweet, Ant.
Duh.
Welcome back to Whippany, New Jersey. We are building an awesome koi pond here, and we are so close to actually finishing this. If you haven't seen how we got to this point, click on this link right here. It'll take you video number 1. You can watch all the parts to get to where we are right at this moment. Today, our focus is finishing the actual pond and getting it filled up with water. Last video, we got the wetland filter built. That is at the point now where we can start rocking in. We're gonna have a waterfall coming into the pond here. Then behind that, we're gonna have a big pooling area with another set of waterfalls that actually come out of the wetland filter. We're at the point now where we're putting the overlap liner in. That's gonna hold the water in this pooling area. Now, we've got a pond liner that comes up behind these rocks up onto the shelf. We took another piece of liner. This is 20 foot by 25 foot. So we're taking this liner, dropping it in front of that one. Then once that's done, we'll fold all this up and we'll backfill this big void back here once we get our waterfall stone in. Then we can pull it back, our overlap will be locked in, and there'll be a second overlap with the liner that comes out of the wetland filter. We'll do the same thing there, just in a different location. We've got our rocks strapped up already. That's gonna make this waterfall happen. Now we're gonna take this big triangular beast and drop it right in between these two big suckers right here. It's gonna bridge that gap and it's gonna make our waterfall weir. We'll have water cascading into the pond right about this height here off of that big rock, dropping right down in there, light right at the bottom, highlighting behind it. It's gonna be such a cool effect. And then from there, we wanna actually turn to the left hard because that other waterfall is gonna be over here. Sight lines, we got a big bluestone patio over here. Obviously you wanna enjoy it from there, but also there's a huge deck and a ton of windows on the back of the house. So looking out, you're gonna see multiple waterfalls. You got the negative edge waterfall, you got the one that's falling into the pond, and you got that big waterfall coming out of the wetland filter. First thing we're gonna get done is this pond. Now right now I got Colby and Rob down at the bottom.
So now me and Rob are in the bottom of the pond. We are taking the folds that are in the liner and put cover tape over them so that they don't pop up from the water. And then we're gonna put gravel on top of that. So there's no way you're gonna see that liner in the bottom of the pond. It's just to make it nice and neat.
Right now I am running our 3/8 inch weighted air line for one of our 2 diffusers for the Koi Air 2. That's gonna provide extra aeration, and it's also gonna double as a wintertime aerator for the fish to provide oxygen once the water gets cold. Right now I'm putting the diffuser on this shelf here. When adding aeration, it's important to think about the shape of the pond and try to put it in spots to eliminate any potential dead zones. So this one's going on the opposite side of the waterfall to push all the debris such as leaves, pine needles, etc. into our negative edge so it can be removed.
And once those guys get all that stuff done, then we can do our little bit of finish work, which is kind of like just buttoning up the lights, putting the gravel on the shelves and wash it down. Then it's ready for water. If you've been watching us at all, you've heard me talk about this stuff before. Concrete cloth. So what this is a heavy fabric that's infused with concrete. So what we're using it for here is a rodent barrier. There are chipmunks and other rodents that love to burrow and chew on liner in this area. So in order to protect our liner, we got to put in some sort of barrier. This is where the concrete cloth comes in. We're putting it behind all of our waterfalls and then onto the flat surfaces. They really don't touch the pond, and what I found is only in the wintertime they'll come and they'll chew holes behind the big rocks in the waterfall. I don't know what they do with it, but they just seem to love to do that. So I think they use some of the material in their burrows, and then you turn on your waterfall in the spring and you're losing water. You don't know where it's going. Well, that could be a definite culprit. So with this going in, what'll happen is it'll get wet down, and when the moisture seeps into that cloth, it's gonna make that concrete harden. It's gonna make an impenetrable shell. The rodents can't get through it, and your liner will be safe. When you're doing any sort of project, especially big boulder waterfalls, you have to account for this stuff, because the last thing you want is to have to come back in and bring heavy equipment in, tear up the landscape, and take these waterfalls apart to then replace the liner, because it's a major problem if you do have to do that. So you're talking about a giant surgery to fix something that you could definitely remedy right from the get-go. Costs a bit of money, but it's well worth it. Today is definitely an exciting way to start out. We are just putting the gravel in the bottom of the pond, which means we can now wash it down, get all that junk out of there, and start filling this. That's a huge milestone when you're on a project like this. When you actually start putting water in the pond, it means you're getting that much closer. It's looking really great. There's just a couple areas to touch up. Drew's got to do some rock work around where that jet comes out over there. Kevin's trimming back all the excess fabric that we used underneath the rocks. We want to make this bottom nice and clean, and you can see a lot of it's been graveled in already. That brings us up to the waterfall. Right now, Brendan and Colby are laying out our fabric. We are getting started with this pooling area. That's our liner that we tucked in yesterday. That's all overlapped down into the pond. Now we're gonna pull this all back and start setting some rocks. This is the exit of our wetland filter. I want to start here by framing out a couple rocks that are going to make up this waterfall. You probably can't tell on camera, but this actually bumps out a little bit. I want to kind of contain that. We'll have a big frame rock here. I see waterfalls coming out here. Whether it's a single cascade or it's bouncing off, I'm not quite sure yet. The rocks are going to dictate that. You can see Brendan pulling the liner from the wetland over into our excavation. This is where the overlap's going to happen, right here. This liner is going to come up first. He's just stretching things out to make sure it's nice and clean. We'll actually fold it back again. We'll bring this liner up here on top, and this one will fold over, acting like a shingle, shedding the water into the next layer. We're also laying concrete cloth down in this section. This is all that stream waterfall area. Again, we don't want the rodents doing any damage here. We're gonna make sure we protect all of this so we don't have any future problems. Once that's done, we can actually start picking out some rocks and building some streams and waterfalls. There's always just like a little bit of anxiety when you're building the waterfall, because the rocks are starting to go in. You're like, oh, is this gonna work? And somehow it just always does. But this is looking really awesome. I love the way all the layering is happening with these rocks. So we started with that rock right behind that bottle as our main waterfall stone. We're gonna have water spilling off of that section of rock right there. Then we came in and married up to it with this guy right here. Most people will look at that rock in the pile and be like, what the heck are you gonna do with that thing? I set it so that it's angled in just slightly. Water's gonna bounce off of here. We're gonna feed water from around the backside too. And then it's gonna come and rain down right there. I can definitely see it happening already. And then from there, it's just a matter of like getting stuff behind it, in front of it, to make it look like it belongs there. So this guy came in, sloped in front of that, and actually tucked it right into that nook on the other rock, and it fit perfectly. Then we're getting some stuff in the foreground, stuff behind, really completing that layered, tucked in look that we really like to see on these waterfalls. We got a really cool big flat stone that's gonna help direct this water around before it exits into the pond on that waterfall. Brendan's gonna tell us what he's doing.
So right now, Colby and I are cutting down the height of our weir. So as Jack explained earlier, we built our constructive wetland filter. And so now that we've started to set our waterfall rocks off the pond, we now know what height we want to bring our grade down to so that we can set our rocks that are going to dictate the height that it comes out of the wetland and into the stream.
Brennan's actually going to school to be an engineer. That was pretty good, Brennan. I don't know if it's like college worthy, but it was pretty good. I think you could have just learned that here. All right, so we've got a lot of the framework in, which is fantastic. The pond is filling. We got 2 hoses going in here. This pond's gonna fill up tonight. Tomorrow, we're gonna finish up our waterfall wetland area, and we've got to do a few touch-ups down in our intake waterfall.
All right, so we got some plumbing here. We got our sump pump connected in to our bottom drainage. We've got a hose line and a protective conduit that runs off, and that's going to be powering a scarecrow on that side, a scarecrow on that side, just as a heron deterrent. And then we've got, coming out of our pump vault, 2 separate lines. This is our SLD 5-9 and this is our 9PL. That's on 2-inch. The bigger pump is on 3-inch, running all the way up. And then our 2-inch line does split, and that's connected to all the jets that are within the pond.
As you can see, everybody is doing their part today to bring this together. We're hoping to get this done tomorrow. I think we've got some weather coming in, so we'll see if that's going to play a part in things. But as far as the pond itself, we're done. It's filling, feels good. See you tomorrow. Well, good morning. We're up here trying to close up this wetland filter. Essentially what we want to do is, there's the filter. It's a big rectangle. It's 10 feet across this way, 8 foot deep, and that's got all the layers of gravel in it. Our snorkel is right over here underneath this piece of fabric. Right now we're trying to lay out the rock work. I always oversize the liner in the wetlands so we can do this. We actually cut outside of it so we can do some rock work that's not just inside this big rectangle. That's going to help naturalize it and make it look like a small pond up here. When it's all said and done, this should have about 4 or 5 inches of water in the top of it. Once we get those couple boulders in there, then we can finish off this last piece of the waterfall coming out of the wetland. I've got to get water coming off of this rock and this rock. In order to do that, I'm going to build up a weir behind this that equalizes the water, so it will let it drop onto this, as well as feed this side. So it's really going to happen when the rocks start coming in and we kind of fit them and see what looks good. The pond is filling up quite nicely. The hose ran most of the night, and then they started up again this morning around like 4 a.m. to bring it up to level. Right now we had to stop it because Boley and Kevin are down here working on finishing up our waterfalls that go into our intake. Kevin's building a semicircle wall here. We've got liner that's underneath it and coming up behind it. This is called a bib. So essentially we want the water to come off these waterfalls and pool up in this area before it goes into the reservoir. Over here we'll build another small set of waterfalls just so we can back up the water, maybe just a couple inches. And then there's going to be a piece of metalamat in here which actually prevents any debris from getting down into the aqua blocks. One of the other things we have to do also is put an overflow in. So this is an existing drainage pipe. We're going to tie this into our reservoir, probably about an inch or so above the aqua block. So if it gets too much water from rain, it can just bleed out and go out the drainage. This is looking super cool. I can't wait to see water flowing over all this out of the pond. If the weather would give us a break today, I can see us finishing this. Fingers crossed.